Hi. Um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a little bit from the novel that I sort of wrote during lockdown. I thought that would be appropriate, even though it's maybe not exactly what my bio said. What this part of the novel is about. It's a haunted house novel about fascism, basically, and this part of the novel is sort of a flashback to when the two main characters first went to the house. It's about halfway through, but there's not really any spoilers for it. And anyway, the novel's not being published soon anyway, so I don't really need to worry about spoilers. The novel's called Tell Me I'm Worthless, and this is from part 2. It opens with a quote from Umberto Eco, which is, "Nevertheless, even though political regimes can be overthrown and ideologies can be criticized and disowned, behind a regime and its ideology, there is always a way of thinking and feeling, a group of cultural habits, of obscure instincts and unfathomable drives. Is there still another ghost stalking Europe, not to speak of other parts of the world? No live organism can continue to exist compassionately under conditions of absolute fascism. Even the birds in Italy under Mussolini were observed to take part in rallies and violence. The house, for what else can it be called, as it has no official name, it sits on no street, is owned by a faceless organisation. The house, neither compassionate nor sane, stood ringed by a forest of pines holding it inside, however messily its overpowering ideology. It had stood so for 100 years, but would only stand for one more before it entered into the long process of becoming something else, at the end of which it hoped it would seem to all the world that it had always been this way. Inside, the hallways were as still and empty as a frozen lake. The rooms came off the hallways, the stairs led up to more hallways, and the walls found themselves leaning to and fro depending on who they hated the most that day, because they were certainly partial to hate. The 3 girls, with stuffed backpacks filled with spare clothes and bottles of wine, ducked through the decaying fence at the house's perimeter, past the keep out sign that seemed destined to be ignored. The earth around the house was sick. The trees grew here, but only at a distance. If any trees grew too close to the house, they found themselves sick. They would become stunted and rot from the inside out. The front door hung from its hinges, and the doorway that it revealed was so black that it seemed to eat the moonlight. The girls, giggling and privileged in various ways, crept towards the entrance, nervous but not believing they had any reason to be, because none of them believed in ghosts. The house opened up to graciously allow them to come inside of it. Walls continued upright, if askew. Floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut, locked even. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of the house, and whatever walked there marched on Rome. There are no communist houses in Europe. There were once, but they were, in turn, destroyed, or if they weren't destroyed outright, they became infected with a weakening symptom of liberalism until they could barely believe in anything anymore. By the end, they weren't anything, just houses. The girls walk into the house. We are following the girl in the middle, Hannah. She's the Aryan ideal, a petite blonde white woman. She's between Alice and Ela, the other 2 girls. She's the centre of the 3, the centre of the triangle. No live organism can continue to exist. No life and no existence, nothing at all, an empty, harsh void with razor edges. Now, if 3 girls enter a house and only 2 leave, who is implicated, who is guilty? 1 girl? Both girls? The house? Do all 3 share the blame equally? And if both girls tell a different story, but you read online that you have to believe women, what do you do? Do you decide one is a woman and one isn't, so you can believe one of them but not the other? Do you take the side of the woman who is most like you, or the most intersectional one? but one is rich and white and trans, and the other is rich and Asian and cis and a lesbian. And so you go online and you find an oppression calculator on BuzzFeed and try to work out who is more oppressed, but they come out fairly equally, and you can't trust numbers anyway. Numbers have been known to lie. Numbers have been known to show a bias. Statistics often have racist undertones, for example. So there's just two girls leaving a house, and maybe you don't have to take a side. Maybe you can empathise with both of them and hope they get therapy and the help they need, and they can learn to forgive one another. No, you can't do that. Are you an idiot? That's not... You genuinely think that that's possible? That's not possible. Three girls go into a house. The door hangs off its hinges, but it's still heavy. All three of them heave it open. Well, mostly Alice and Ayla, because Anna is too small to really be much help, although they let her push to feel included. The door doesn't creak. The noise it makes is more of a sort of scratching, metal grinding against wood. Hannah finds herself already unsettled. She stepped into the threshold and immediately has walked into a cobweb. She yelps like a little girl, and Ayla and Alice laugh at her. They ask her mockingly if she's scared, which only makes her feel more embarrassed and frankly annoyed. She's been mad at them ever since she realised they were sleeping together. The three of them had a delicate balance, but bringing sex into the equation changed things. Suddenly she was a third wheel, an outsider in this micro-group within their group. Not only this, but they haven't actually told her that they are sleeping together. They don't hide it, but they couldn't even be bothered to let her in on their little secret. She brushes the cobweb from her hair and glares at Alice and Ayla. I wonder who built this place, she says, not a question. I don't know. I walk past it every week to go out into the woods. Ayla walks through the entrance hall over to the stairs and brushes dust off the banister. The hall is only illuminated by the torch that Alice moves around to get some idea of the geography of the place. It's murky, inky dark that eats at the three of them. There are open doorways branching off to either side of them, frustratingly not identical. One doorway, the one on the left, had sharp angles around it and no decoration at all. Another door, opposite to that one, is curved like a church window with tiny wooden figures guarding at its peak. The stairs are wide and swoop up to the first floor landing, looking like something from a Gothic novel, which, of course, they are. Yes, there are windows, but you cannot see through them, and neither can Alice, even with her torch. And neither can Ayla or Hannah. The windows are boarded from the outside, and on the inside they are covered in dust and spiders. The house is its own habitat. There are things here which do not breed in this part of the country, but please note that there are no species that might be classified as foreign invaders inside of the house, unless you count rats, of which there are many, and harlequin ladybirds, which found a way into one of the rooms on the first floor and now hibernate there. But you would not be able to see them unless you had your own light, as there is no electricity in the house. The generator was stolen years ago. The thief wanted to sell it, but when he tested it out to see if it actually worked, it set his house ablaze, killing him and his young family. There is no electricity in the house. But, very occasionally, maybe once every few years, there is a faint light in one of the windows on the first floor. It doesn't appear that a light in the room with the window is on. Instead, it appears that one of the rooms very far down the corridor from that room is inexplicably illuminated with a red light. Thank you. You can follow me on Twitter at Special Sweat, and I can't remember my Instagram handle. Oh, its Instagram is alison.zone. I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.